This is Tony Cooper, and I'm just sitting down. Okay, so here we go. Alrighty. So we're getting back to Costa Rica now. This is part two. I'm going to leave my glasses on because I can't see my computer screen without them, which is where all my notes are. This is part two of the Costa Rica trip. We're going to start to get into more of the wildlife photos that were taken, as well as some flora, fauna, all that stuff, and a few more pictures of some of the places where we visited the resorts or not resorts, the eco lodges where we were housed. But first, I'm going to finish up at Robledal. We arrived there on the 18th, which was the start date of our tour, and the last day that Diana and I were in San Jose. Excuse me, San Jose at the Marriott. We traveled there earlier in the day, and of course did some walking around and just getting a feel for the lodge area, and it was really nice. By the time we had got there, we had gotten an email from our guide, who's Ben Canote, and he's a very experienced guide. You wouldn't know it by first looking at him, though. At the time of our trip, I think he was 27, and very self-assured young man. He knew what he was doing. He knew where the animals were. He spoke considerable native tongue, Spanish. I'm sure he speaks other languages as well, or some parts of other languages, just enough to get by. But he did a great job with our driver, and had a couple of conversations with Diana, who also speaks quite a bit of Spanish. But we were getting together that evening, the evening of the 18th, around 6:30 for dinner. Made some introductions, talked about what our specific expectations were. Ben took notes and discussed the rest of the tour. One of the things he was at the time that he was ensuring that we're all aware of is that there's going to be a mix of hot and cold, lowlands, rainforests, highlands, and by highlands I mean way up in the mountains. By rainforests I mean literally that there were rainforests, usually associated with some of the mountain ranges, or in fact, volcanoes. So there were lots of interesting places that we went. So we had a nice dinner. We all talked. Everybody kind of revealed their specific goals. There was an older retired couple. They were retired teachers, and I think the gentleman was 80, and maybe his wife was a little bit younger than that, which made no difference because they kept up with everybody the whole time. So no big deal there. The other couple were from Canada, and they were specifically going for best shots, best lighting, best composition, best moment kind of stuff, because they're competitive shooters, and that's perfectly okay too. There's lots and lots of room out there for different kinds of photography work from a variety of people. Now, Diana is, of course, a wildlife photographer herself, focusing primarily on what is self. Yes, she still, I mean, she enjoys it as a hobby, so to speak, as well, because everything is new. You learn new things about a lot of these different animals, and it's fantastic to learn this stuff. I have learned so much from her interest and her drive and her determination to get such a variety of different kinds of birds. And that was really the preface for this trip, is to make sure that we had as much coverage in as short a period of time without killing her. We may or may not have come close, but we had a great time. We did a lot of amazing things, and we were so grateful for everybody who participated. My role was not to photograph birds, although I did end up photographing a few. My role was primarily support. I was going to do a lot more chronicling of the trip to see how things went. I did a lot of pictures of trees and flowers, and there were some leaves that were just absolutely fascinating. I also spent an evening with Ben at one of the resorts photographing frogs, because this particular, and I keep saying resort, I shouldn't be doing that, lodges. At this one particular lodge, at night, a bunch of frogs come out in one of their pond areas, and he knew about it, and he was ready to share it with me. And he said, "Yeah, if you like shooting frogs, I'll come out there with a flashlight or whatever lighting we need. If you have a flashlight, we'll use that too. But you can photograph those." And I did. And I'll show you some of the results of that when we get to that point. But after we were done with dinner and our evening, we didn't unpack much when we went back to the room, just enough to sort of, brush our teeth, wash our face, go to bed. And then the next day came, and we were up early enough, like 6:30, 7 o'clock, to go see a small owl that was in a nesting box on the property, as well as walking around various other parts of the property to get a sense of what to expect with the wildlife here. And Ben joined us not long after we were out there. We met up with our tour bus driver. His name was Oscar. And I'll tell you more about Oscar later, but he was such a fantastic guide. I'm not even just going to call him a driver. Yes, he drove the bus that we use, which was more or less about a 20-person bus with 8 people in it. Him, Ben, and the 6 people, along with all our luggage, of course. And a lot of people had a lot of luggage. Diana and I probably had more luggage than was expected. We had 2 bags with our clothes and our essentials, and then we had my camera bag, and then Diana's camera bag, and then my backpack, which has my computer in it. And my intent was to back up our camera cards every day. And well, there's a story in there, and I'm going to wait until we get to the point where I can tell that story before I get to it. I don't want to get into too much detail of that, because this episode is only going to cover the 19th. So what happened when we all kind of realized, hey, we got to go. It's time to leave. Ben was pushing us along, make sure that we were all ready to go, and make sure we didn't forget anything in our rooms. And we were ready to head out by late morning. I would say 10:30. Our first adventure was well north of San Jose, but we did have some stops. Along the way. So we're traveling along, and when you're around the big city, of course, there's lots of paved roads. I mean, this is not a third world country by any stretch of the imagination, and the roads were really nice. And we started heading into some of the mountainous areas where we were going to stop for lunch and get to see some of the areas where people specifically set up what I guess are areas where they are providing food to the birds and other animals. Primarily birds. If I don't say other animals from now on, it's because it's included. Okay, there were some other animals, but it was sparse. We had plenty of birds. So our first stop was a hole in the wall, really, and it looked like someone had once set up a taco stand, and I don't mean that offensively. I mean that in the regular sense of the word, that like side of the road street food, and it was a cool place because there was a gift shop and there was food was available, and of course there was an area where you can photograph lots and lots of birds that came in, and you'll see some of them. They're going to be up here as we go. And if you want to see more of that bird, just pause, even zoom in if you need to, because some of them are just amazing. But there were lots of birds. Like I said, there was a gift shop, and we picked up a couple things, but we didn't go overboard just yet. We didn't go overboard really until we got to our last stop. And then we were on the road again. So, and what I mean by on the road again, we were back in the bus, and this is really kind of where we spent a lot of our time over the next, I guess, 13, 14 days. Okay, until May 4th, when we got back to Hotel Robledal. So we did see some other birds on the way out. At some points, we would stop, almost in the middle of the road, because it wasn't a heavily traveled road. There were some amazing birds, and everybody's looking for them. Primarily Ben and Oscar, who was again the guide driver, and because they know they're going to be there. They've been in this country. Oscar's lived there his whole life, and Ben has been there 4 or 5 times already, so he knows where to look for things. And once we got to kind of a point where we started turning off of main roads and stuff like that, a lot of the roads were primarily gravel. Now, when I talk about gravel roads in Costa Rica, I kind of mean it looks like it should be fairly flat, and it wasn't like the crusher run type of gravel that you have in many small subdivisions in the United States. It felt like this had all been packed down, like it was asphalt, but it isn't. But like any type of roads like that are subordinate roads, not main. There is a considerable number of potholes, and we're not talking potholes like boom. We're talking about potholes like you have to slow down to 2 miles an hour, go around the pothole, only to be met by another pothole which isn't quite as dangerous. And on our way up to our first lodge of the trip, which was Laguna de Legarto, those roads were perilous. And of course, I was making jokes the whole time, basically saying, that I finally found some roads in another in another country that were worse than West Virginia's, and I only point out that observation from the standpoint that there was a lot of moments where we would slow down, get our bearings, to get around some of the things, and obviously, there's lots of splashing and things like that. So we continued on to Laguna de Legarto. We got there early afternoon, say like 1:30, 2 o'clock. We kind of did a walk around. We saw some of the areas where they prop for the birds, and I want to qualify propping for the birds because it's not them trying to attack the birds, but it's also providing them with food. And a lot of the birds have come to expect it. And we're not talking about tossing out leftover bread from yesterday, which you should not feed bread to birds in any case. Any kind of bird, any kind of fowl. You should not give them bread because it's very hard for them to digest and it expands in their stomach and it can be fatal to them. Um, just public service announcement. So we did our walk around. We looked at some of the really cool stuff that was there. It had this massive deck along the back, which faced onto a pond. I think it I think it may have joined some kind of um, other body of water, like maybe a small river or something like that. It wasn't huge. Some of the photographs just from that resort are fantastic. They're just of course, we're in awe because it's our first time seeing tropical birds in the wild. Even though they were drawn in by food, they were a considerable distance from us. We were in no way able to touch or greet or meet the birds, and they never wanted to come over to where we were. They wanted to be where the food was, and sometimes they would just come and hang out. They weren't looking for the food. They were looking to see what was going on. But hey, that was great. So after we did our walk around, we checked in to the hotel. We were there a little early, so we eventually did get to check in. The rooms were very Spartan. They didn't really sport a lot of decoration. Each had better beds, screens for the windows, well, half the windows, because it was like a slide, open, close kind of thing. So the half that you could open had a screen, so you didn't have to worry about um, being attacked by bugs. And as an aside, despite the fact that this is a tropical country and it's higher humidity, constantly elevated um, warmth, we really did not have any bug issues. We did not really have any mosquito problems, despite what we had read leading up to our trip planning. There were not a lot of ticks. In fact, there's almost no ticks in this country. And similarly, other types of bugs, chiggers, and other creepy crawlies that are all over you. Because hey, fresh meat. That we didn't really see a lot of that, and especially the mosquito thing, which was great. Yes, there were mosquitoes, and no, they were not massive. They were just regular mosquitoes. But we stayed protected, for the most part, the whole time. We used bug spray or we used bug spray wipes, whatever. We used, enough of the stuff that kept them away from us. So the rooms did not have air conditioning. And at first, I was a little bit taken aback by that because I do not sleep well in heat. But you're in a country that has this amazing wildlife. You're probably going to make a few exceptions, and I certainly did. I didn't like it at the time. I whined about it mostly to myself and to Diana and maybe a little bit to Facebook. It was fine. It was fine. I was warm, but they did provide us with fans. We were even able to get an extra fan because we had one in the room and it was oscillating between us. and then I would be like 90 degrees, and then I would be 80 degrees. Yes, I know the temperature doesn't change because of a fan, but I would be cool because of the fan, and then I would be hot because the fan was not on me. So having two fans meant that we both had plenty of air going at any given time. There was a limited shower and bathroom. It was. I think the place looked like it used to be kind of a summer kids camp or year-round kids camp, for all I know, because it was set up so that there were, a bed or two or three in one room, and then there was a hallway, and at the end of the hallway, which was just like right next to our our door to our room, right next to that, right there was the bathroom where there was a sink just inside. Sinks are slightly more elevated in this country, I found. They're more, instead of being like mid thigh level for most people, they were more like waist level or even higher in some cases. Um, it seems to make sense to me because what are you doing at the sink if you're not kind of bending over to wash your face or brush your teeth or whatever it is? But and it was fine. That was no problem to get used to. There was also a toilet, and there was pretty much wherever we went, there was everybody wanted you to know that the only things that go in the toilet are the toilet paper and whatever it is that you deposited there. So don't put anything else in there. Don't put any other types of products or anything else in the pot because it's just going to cause problems. And we didn't. There was also a fairly big shower. One of the things about the showers, most places we went, is that the drain isn't under or near or centered or at the front of the shower. Instead, it's like at the back edge of the shower. And of course, everything is kind of angled, so it all kind of flows that way. That will become significant um, a little later. Um, I just I just want to make sure you understand that I'm not going to leave anything off of this. So anyway, we got our we were going to be there for I think it was 2 nights, whatever it was, 3 nights maybe. But this was our first best opportunity to do a bunch of stuff. There were several things that we were going to get um, a lot of coverage for a variety of different types of birds and other wildlife. We had the opportunity at one point to see some amazing snakes, some beautiful frogs, and of course, um, predatory birds such as vultures and other types of just really big birds, as well as the colorful ones like toucans and other types of birds, which I'm going to go into in the next episode. But they were also feeding us at this place, and meal times were pretty much set. I think 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning was breakfast, and all meal times were for like a 1.5 to 2 hour window period, and you were done. Now they left coffee out throughout the day, and that was good for me. All the coffee was excellent. It's all locally grown, locally roasted, and there was always plenty of it. And they always had milk. Um, I mean, we're spoiled in the United States to have half and half and creamer and stuff like that. They just use milk. I think everybody else uses milk except for us in the United States. But the point is um, that they always had stuff like this available. They also had water available. Don't drink. Don't drink the water that comes out of the tap. No, no. You can rinse your mouth out with it. You brush your teeth, you rinse your mouth out, whatever it is. You can do that, but don't swallow it. Don't drink that stuff. It's not. It tastes okay. It's safe to drink. There's no toxins in it. It's all very pure and natural. But there are some kinds of minerals in there that did terrible things to my intestines. And it took me several days, if not week or so, to recover from having had water on the first day or two that we were there. It lasted several days that I was having the problems, and and that played a role in how we were able to manage things that were going on. And by manage, what I mean is there were there were lots of times where you when you get to my age, and at the time I was 63. When you get to my age, you've been doing certain things, at a certain time of day. I get up in the morning here at home. I get up in the morning, relieve myself if I need to, go to the kitchen, make my coffee, make my breakfast. Same for Diana. I make her tea. I make her breakfast and usually her lunch if she's going into the gallery, which is her shop. And it's usually not until much later in the morning that I take my constitutional. But here, I mean, there was no. My body said you're going to end up changing your schedule here, bud. And I'm sorry about that, but that's the way it is. But each of our days, we were always up early. Some days were earlier than others. But the objective was to make sure that we got to the birds during their prime feeding time, their prime appearance time, because it's cooler in the day or in the very early morning than it is during the day, and they want to go to the shade, and don't want to be bothered by you. They don't want to be bothered by anything. They just want to they want to rest because they're coming out later in the afternoon as well. Sometime between 4 and 6, we were we were out there again, and after 6 or so, most days, there was nothing to see anyway because all the birds were back in their favorite perch. They weren't eating. They would only come in the morning, and that was fine. Um, uh, the first night of sleep, like we said about the fans, um, we did ask if we could get an extra fan, and Ben found us one right away. And he brought it over. I mean, he was there to take care of us for the most part. Yes, he was very informational and very knowledgeable, and he knew everything about what we were doing. So when we were talking about, hey, we need a fan. He said, I got it. I'll go get this. I'll find this for you. So he would, we would he would knock on the door, say, "Here's your fan," or whatever it was. There were other instances where he was able to easily help us out by finding whatever it is that we wanted to find. But the first night of sleep, I think I pretty much slept on top of the covers. It wasn't until well after midnight, probably 2 or 3 in the morning, that I pulled up a sheet at all, because I was that uncomfortable. But we started pretty early the next day, so I had to try to get as much sleep as possible. And a lot of what we saw on the first day, I mean, there are pictures over here. Most of this is Diana's work. On every picture that you're going to see, I'm going to put a name, or I have a name on it, so you can say who took it. Some of the pictures that I took have absolutely nothing to do with the wildlife that we saw. It has more to do with here's a bunch of stuff that I saw. Like when we were at Laguna de Legarto, there were there was it wasn't unusual to see small lizards, so I took a picture of one. We saw frogs at one of the resorts inside the room, mostly in the bathroom because hey, it's wet there. But I think you get the gist that um, this is a very step outside of your um, bound life, if you will. Um, And since this was my first occurrence of chronicling a trip this big, I did it by um, typing up, or I use my tablet mostly to do features. A feature of, for example, saw some birds on the way out, gravel road from hell, Laguna de Legarto, walk around, check in. And the objective was that I was going to get back home and I was just going to record all this. Didn't happen. Life. Well, I'll talk about a mental health challenge that I was having at the time and have had since then, called high functioning anxiety. And that is one of those things where you look at your situation and you say, okay, you have to do this. You have to get it accomplished. I realize that a lot of it you don't know how to do, like this. I mean, it took me, what, 4 years to get to the point where I was comfortable enough with the process and having learned quite a bit about filmmaking that I could actually create these videos and create these podcasts and show all the pictures without looking like a goober. So that was it for the first full day out and about. I think you're going to love some of what we've seen. I'm going to attach a few things to the end of this. There were a couple of videos that I took of a waterfall. There's another waterfall too. I need to find that. But either way, it was a good first day, even with the potholes, which were weird. I've never seen potholes this deep. But it was a great first day, and even with not having slept, we still managed to do quite a bit the next day. And I'm going to end this episode, and we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to start up on the Monday, the 20th, which was kind of our first full day at one of the lodges with all of the other stuff going on. And there was a wee bit of conflict about where certain people were supposed to be at a certain time, and I'll get into that. Like I said, I'm not holding anything back. I want you to know how this trip went, and how issues were resolved, if there were any. But for now, I'm going to leave you be. I hope you are enjoying what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and I would love to hear your feedback. And as always, I only repeat this every few episodes. I'm not going to repeat it every time. If you are an artist, if you are a mental health professional, or if you have mental health issues, I would love to talk with you. If for no other reason, just to say, hey, I get it. I understand. I'm in the same boat. I'm ready to talk about it. I'm ready to work with you. But I would also love to be able to interview you if that is something that you are comfortable with. I did an enormous and wonderful interview with Ben, our tour guide, on this, but it was like a year and a half later that I did the interview. I am in the process of interviewing Diana, who is an accomplished artist. You've already seen some of the other stuff that I've done interview-wise. And I'm looking forward to you seeing all of it. For now, though, it's time to go. And I will see you on the next one. Everybody take care. Be careful out there. Peace.